dusty old road in a ramshackle town stood a dusty old cowpoke with his hat brim turned down. With his thumb sticking out, looking down on his luck, just a dusty old drifter. So I slowed down my truck and I said, "Climb aboard, sir." He said, "I don't mind if I do." And I traveled this country through good times and bad, like this road smooth and bumpy, sometimes happy, sometimes sad. Don't she look pretty in the light of the dawn, sparkling and glistening like a river of stone? I reckon she does. We drove on through the night on this dusty old road. We saw this dawn's early light, me and that dusty cowpoke, and he was looking at my road map like he was trying to find a vision of promise, or some alley not blind. He kind of smiled and said, "I've traveled this country from Texas to Maine, and this road smooth and bumpy, it ain't never the same. Don't she look pretty in the light of the dawn, sparkling and glistening like a river of stone?" Well, we pulled in for coffee in a South Texas town. Early light and the moon going down. He was looking at my road map with eyes all shiny and kind. It was only then I realized that the old man was blind. Climbed down off my running board, he smiled and said to me, "Thanks for the ride on this dusty old road. I'll be seeing your partner," said that dusty old cowpoke. "Don't she look pretty in the light of the dawn, sparkling and glistening like a river of stone?" Thank you so much. Well, it's good to be back with the family again. It's been a while. Sue. Did you ever live in snow country where the wind comes calling through the pines, where snowflakes fall like feathered down, steal away your sense of time, steal away your mind? I loved a girl with eyes so warm, with jet black raven hair, in a cabin made of logs and clay. We kept the fire burning there. Oh, the fire burning there. Early one morning I heard the wild crows call. When the days were growing warm, I returned to the cabin with some firewood, but my darling girl's gone. Oh, the one I love is gone. Take me back to the arms of my snow country girl. The wind is blowing through the pines, where snowflakes fall like feathered down. My snow country girl was so kind when I was young and snow blind. I loved a girl with eyes so warm, jet black raven hair, in a cabin made of logs and clay. We kept the fire burning there. Oh, the fire burning there. And I hear a voice say, forget me not, nor the lifetimes of love we have given. And I must fly where the wild crows cry, somewhere between earth and heaven. It's a long road between earth and heaven. Take me back to the arms of my snow country girl. The wind is calling through the pines, where snowflakes fall like feathered down. Steal away your sense of time, steal away your mind. My snow country girl was so kind when I was young and go blind. How's everybody been? Anybody these long many years here? Well, see a couple of little kids now that I didn't see before. I wonder if my picking buddies are here. I brought some people with me, and Chris, you around? Arthur? I see bobbing and shit. This is Mr. Chris Henry on the mandolin. And on the five-string bands are coming up here. One of my oldest buddies here, my oldest youngest buddy, Arthur Hancock Jr. here. Arthur. When I was a bluegrass boy and living in Nashville, Tennessee, I met Arthur's dad, who was a student at Vanderbilt University, and he'd come over to my cabin and we'd play songs and pick. And it was just a real special time in my life. Of course, you were but a gleam in your daddy's eye at that time. I was in town to join the Bill Monroe band and be a bluegrass boy, but I had a lot of downtime because Bill was only working on the weekends and we'd play the Grand Ole Opry, you know, and the union scale was life had to be simple in those days because union scale was $17.50 for Friday night and $25.29 for Saturday night because you do two sets, and but it was I forget what year it was exactly, 63 or 64, I think it was. I'd been in Nashville a while, but Bill had another guy playing guitar, and Jimmy, and things moved slow in the South in those days, maybe even still slower now, but no, Nashville's pretty much a boom town. But anyway, just trying to remember where I first met Arthur was a little jam session at an Irish pub. It was the only bluegrass jam session in town. Then you had the Grand Ole Opry, which was a professional operation downtown at the Ryman Auditorium. And it was the same place that Patsy Cline played, and where Hank Williams got kicked off the Opry for being too ornery and crazy. And where Bill Monroe stood on those steps. To this very day, you can go to those stone steps backstage of the Opry, where Bill, you know, came out after Hank was banished, and he came out and he talked to Hank in the back there and told him he was behind him, and that that he hoped that he could, he'd always be behind him. Bill always let everybody know that they were, he supported them. If not any other way except spiritually. And when I joined, he told me, Pete, if you can learn my music, you can play any kind of music. He saw who I was for sure. And but it all, in a way, for me, bluegrass was the one music that had everything in it. And I've tried to explore some of those territories on my own since that time. But with young players like this up here, Chris Henry and Arthur Hancock, the music is revitalized all the time by wonderful players who put the right stuff into it. And my first show with Bill Monroe was on the Opry, and I sang this song here. Well, I wash my hands with muddy water, wash my hands, but it wouldn't come clean. Tried to do like my dad in a muddy stream. My hands in muddy water. Wash my hands, but they wouldn't come clean. Tried to do like my daddy told me, but I must have washed my hands in the muddy stream. And Bill had chosen that song, and he wanted me to sing that as a solo, but I was too green to understand that when the boss says do something, you just do it. And so I never sang that song again. Instead, I sang Dark Hollow, which had been a standard guitar player, bluegrass boy, lead singer, solo song for many years. Del McCoury sang it before me, and Jack Cook sang it before him, and the great Texas player recorded a lot with Bill, sang it. Ed Mayfield, yeah, he sang Wash My Hands in Muddy Water. And, Dark Hollow. Anyway, I'm a little fuzzy. I just got back from Italy. I was over in the Venice lagoons for 10 days, floating around in vaporettos and going to palazzos and feeling pazzo. And it was a great time. There was a bunch of folks from Portland put it together, and a friend of mine there, Matt, he had a thing called the Everyone Orchestra, which is a whole lot of fun. Got everybody involved singing and stuff, and then Scott Law and some of the band from Terrapin Station, which is Phil Lesch's place out in San Rafael, California. They were all there, and another great player and singer, songwriter, Tim Bloom, was there. And it used to be real easy to do these trips, and I did them all the time, and I would often end up back here at the end of a little run in Europe in the fall. But now it seems like my mind is somewhere between. It takes a few days now. It used to be I could be instantaneously anywhere, and now there's a sort of a molecule trail that's catching up with me. And it feels all right. It feels good, you know. So when I sang that song on the Grand Ole Opry, I came back the next weekend. That was my audition song. And I didn't know, I was so green, I just didn't understand really what was going on, or I pretended to understand what was going on, or pretended not to understand what was going on, but I wasn't very truthful with myself at that time. And I came back the next weekend for the next show. We didn't do any road trips for a long time. And Bill said, well, Pete, now we've had a lot of phone calls and letters come in, and people like your singing, and they say, he said, now that's a good thing. And he said, and they say you sound a little bit like me, and he said, that's not a good thing. But we had, in the end, when I saw Bill back before he passed away, and we went out for lunch together, all he said about those days were, them were good days, Pete. Them were good days. And I had felt like such a complete screw up, being a 23-year-old Yankee, you know, who just faked his Army physical and was judged 4F. You know, I was a little conflicted because my dad didn't seem to understand that. And I said, Dad, do you want me to go to war? He said, that's not the point. And I said, oh, okay. End of conversation, you know. But, you know, we live with all these roots. And we'd play the Grand Ole Opry, you know, every Saturday night. Bill's routine at the time was we'd all climb aboard this old bus he had called the Bluegrass Breakdown, and we'd drive up north to Bean Blossom, Indiana, home of the Brown County Jamboree. And Bill opened up to me on the bus, and he told me quite a few things about his music, because most everybody would go to sleep around 1 in the morning, and I would pick the shift that ended at 1 in the morning. And the way you got out of the driver's seat on the Bluegrass Breakdown was if I was driving, Chris was going to take the next turn, we'd get to the top of the hill and throw it into neutral. And this is when he had to double clutch these old buses. Throw it into neutral, and now all the gears just kind of are just slowing down. It's not in gear. It's free floating with no clutch, no brakes, no brakes. And we go over the lip of the hill now. We'd have about 10 seconds to do this, and Chris would put his hands on the wheel, and I'd slide out into the aisle, into the shotgun seat. Chris would like jump into the driver's seat. And now whoever had jumped in the driver's seat had to get the bus back in gear, which meant that you had to rev it up to, well, you say you're going like 55, 60 down the hill now with no engine brake. So you get it up into gear, and you had to double clutch it, which meant that you got it into gear, then you clutched and pumped it again so that the two flywheels that engage the gears would mesh. And if they didn't, you'd know it, because it would sound like a machine gun going off. And so you'd rev it up and get it in gear, and then probably slam it. It had 5 gears. You'd probably slam it into 4th, so you'd be up to speed. You know what I'm saying? You had to have it up to speed. It was not an automatic shift or anything like that. And if the engine wasn't running, then the hydraulic system of the brake system wasn't working. So you were always at risk of like blowing out your brakes, which happened. I won't tell you that story right now. So I had chosen the late shift because I knew that Bill liked to stay up late and play his mandolin. And when he played his mandolin, he played very free form, and he'd say things like, "Now that's the Indian sound." He wouldn't say American Indian, but he meant the Indian. He said that's how the Indian people feel. That's how they sing. And he said to me, I'll never forget. He said, "Pete, you've got to love the music, and love it, and sing it to the people, so the people will love it the same way." And I thought that was probably the best career advice I'd ever had in my life. The night before we wrote the song, I had stayed up with him, and my shift began at about 4 or 5 in the morning. And I got lucky because the bus broke down and I didn't have to do my shift. But before that happened, driving through, I had been driving, and I'd heard Bill, playing his stuff in, and so when I went back and sat in one of those old bunks where he was playing music all by himself, and he said, I've had to keep as much out of bluegrass music as I put in it. And I thought, well, what is this thing he's playing called bluegrass? And that's the night he told me when he went on his own after leaving his brother Charlie, and Charlie took all their territory east of the Mississippi River where they had become famous, Georgia, Tennessee, and Carolinas, and gave Bill the rest of the country and the Sudan. And he held auditions for his band up in the state park in Memphis. He would go down to the phone booth and he'd put in some coins. He called the radio station. He says, Tell the people who want to play music with me, I'm up here at the state park, and if they want to come up here and play with me, they're welcome, And so DJs who knew the Monroe brothers would advertise that Bill was up in the state park looking for a band. And a couple of people joined him up there, and he said the first thing he did when he got together with Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, who were joined the band at different times, but they were from the Carolinas, Tennessee and Carolina. You see, they took it, he said nobody understood what he wanted to do musically, so he took them to New Orleans and stayed down in New Orleans. And I said, well, what kind of music was going on down there at the time? He said, Pete, a man could find any kind of music that he wanted down there. I kind of got the picture. And so, without the blues element in his music, he might have had a whole different sound. And you know, the very polished sound of Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs was the component that gave Bill a huge boost into a fully developed bluegrass sound. Those two guys had a chemistry with Bill. And I asked Earl Scruggs before he passed away over at Merlefest one spring when we had a Bluegrass Boy reunion. And I asked him, I said, when you guys were playing together and you went up to Chicago to record, I said, did you know it was going to be, you know, the historic recordings that came out of Chicago at that time? Did you know that it was going to be something really special? I mean, how do you talk to Earl Scruggs except to say, I worship your music? And I said, did you guys have a sense that it was happening? He said, oh yes, he said, we thought we were shit hot. So Bill took them to New Orleans to school them. He said they'd stay down for a couple of months at a time. And of course, working west of Memphis meant Louisiana and Mississippi, Texas. And that's where Bill also got the idea of having three fiddles, going out there and hearing Bob Wills and all these folks who were on record at the time. And yeah, so we want to play you the song that came out of that conversation. Bill began to open up to me, and then when the bus broke down, I was standing outside the bus watching the sunrise over the mountains of eastern Kentucky, and we broke down in a place called Horse Caves, which just had a great poetic name. Not a great history, but it's a great name. The Horse Caves. And I was standing out there and the sun was rising, and he walked up to me off that bus. It totally broke down. And the last sound out of the bus was the hydraulic system just letting go. And the bus settled. It was a tiny bus, but it seemed big at the time. We called it the Blue Goose at first because it had like a wetland scene painted on the side, all faded. It had belonged to Ernest Tubb, which meant it had been rode hard and put up wet many times. And then a comedy group called Lonzo and Oscar had it, and then it came to Bill. And yeah, man, that bus was well used. And later on, of course, the Bluegrass Boys didn't have to drive. He got a professional driver, which is, you know, you think about it, we were his bus drivers. You know, one after another sliding in and out of that chair, double clutching, going down the hill. So Bill walked up to me that morning. The sun was rising, and he said, Pete Rowen, listen good to this. Don't you ever forget it. And this is the song we wrote. Yeah, I was thinking of when we used to play over here with Tony Rice on guitar and Sharon Gilchrist on mandolin and Bryn Bright on bass. I saw Bryn recently. She's a mother now, and then she's got a little baby. And I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm studying nuclear physics." I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "There's no money in bass playing." She's got a family. She's got to make a living. So her father's a scientist, and so she is studying nuclear physics. And God bless their family, and I hope it works out. And Sharon Gilchrist is out on the West Coast, living in Oakland, California, playing some with Darrell Anger, some with Scott Law, and we do some stuff occasionally. And my bass player and sound man Paul Knight has a little band out there with our fiddle player Blaine Sprouse, who's in Japan this week, and Sharon's in that band. So it's a pretty healthy musical situation, but you know, with music it's always a little tenuous. It's like, for some people you're only as hot as your last hit, and for other people you're only as wealthy as your last gig, which may not be that remunerative, but you know, I mean, what's going on in the country now with this kind of crazy real estate boom, and the same thing happened in Europe. I talked to a lot of people when the euro came in, which was about 20 years ago now. People who were happily living in towns like Barcelona, the artistic community and stuff, immediately their rent doubled. They went from pesetas to euros, and what was affordable suddenly became, you know, they were just out of their league. The idea is that everything will trickle down, and soon you'll be able to afford that place that you just had to leave because you can't afford to live there, but you will, because everything gets better all the time, right? Yeah. And anyway, economics, I'm not sure about that. So I've just decided to keep working and keep going. And that's the only thing left to do. Well, let's play a little bluegrass here, boys. What do you think? Let's play a Bill Monroe tune called Uncle Penn Played the Fiddle. Lordy, how it would ring. You could hear it talk. You could hear it sing. Yeah. And now Arthur on the banjo. His dad and I go back a long way, and he's from Kentucky. And he has a band up there, and I believe I'm not misquoting him by saying they're called the Wookiees, right? Their band is called the Wooks. Sorry, the Wooks. So stay tuned for the Wooks, because they'll be coming your way. I can guarantee you. And Chris has got a band. What do you call your band, Chris? Chris Henry and the Hardcore Grass. So let's try this Bill Monroe number. And Bill used to, when he was a kid, his parents had both passed on by the time he was about 8 or 9 years old, and his uncle sort of adopted him and took him under his wing. So he lived with his uncle, who was a lumber guy. The Monroe family was timber, and Uncle Penn Van Diver was his mother's brother. Uncle Penn played the fiddle, and so Bill would ride on the back of a mule with Uncle Penn to local dances, and the guitar player for Uncle Penn was a black man from New Orleans named Arnold Schultz. I guess the Dutch had gotten around. The Van Divers and the Schultzes and all this. But Arnold Schultz is credited with quite a lot of influence on young Bill, and Bill did say he had the prettiest runs, and I'll try and play some of those runs, but oh yeah, Uncle Penn. You could hear her talk, you could hear her sing. I'll never forget that mournful day when Uncle Bill was called away. They hung up his fiddle and they hung up his bow. They knew it was time for him to go. Late in the evening, about sundown, high on the hill and above the town, Uncle Bill played the fiddle on how it would ring. You could hear her talk, you could hear her sing. Okay. I've been spending some time over in Hawaii and recording a little music over there. And I'm going to spring this on these guys. They never played this before. But this is called My Blue Hula Girl. She's the one that I adore. Have you seen my aloha dancing on the Waikiki shore? Oh, I came to Honolulu just to learn to do the hula out in Honolulu Bay, singing howdy songs all night long. Now it's break of day, my blue hula girl. Jim came back from World War II. I was 4 years old, and he came back, and he had a big sack. Came back from Honolulu. He'd been down to the South Pacific in New Caledonia, and he came back and stayed at our house for a year on and off. He was the youngest of that part of my mother's family, and he had that stubborn streak, you know. It was when you mix a Rowen stubborn streak with a Richards stubborn streak, you get an indomitable stubborn streak. And Jimmy had that, but Uncle Jimmy was also when the grown-ups had drinks, you know, in the summertime they'd have like gin and tonics or something like that. Maybe outside on the lawn, or in June when the apple trees were blooming around Massachusetts. And Uncle Jimmy would always look at the kids and he'd go, with his glass, you know, he'd kind of bend his legs like, and do the cross-legged kind of goofy dance, and his cheer, everybody was like, cheers, yes, cheers, and Jimmy would go, hubba hubba ding ding. And I always thought, what does hubba hubba ding ding mean, you know? And I think he learned it in the Navy, and he had a baritone ukulele, a Martin baritone, and if I could ever find my nephew Jimmy Richards, we got to get that ukulele back. I understand it's hanging on the wall somewhere in somebody's house, and we need to get that uke back, because that uke is the foundation of my music. I didn't have a ukulele, and when I was a kid I played a little badminton racket. Yeah, I had an imagination anyway. And I made my first banjo actually after watching Spike Jones on the TV. Spike had a crazy combination of ragtime and jazz, and it was very, very clever. And he had two banjo players, and they both played tenors. And I thought I'd make one, so I got me a little aluminum pie plate and a piece of lathe from a construction site, and I hammered the pie plate to the lathe, and then I got some wires. I didn't know what kind of wires they used, so I got some, you know, regular, like construction wire, and it was so hard to put on, I only put 2 strings on. And I nailed it into the back of the lathe, and I used these, they're like, not bolts, but they were round top screws, and I tried to tune it with that, you know, and I learned, yeah, but it's creative. My godmother said, as she watched me putting this thing together, she said, got a good imagination. And so I played it with a real heavy piece of wood, which gave me some satisfaction. I mean, a big chunk of wood, and it had that scrubby sound that a banjo can have at times. No offense there, buddy. And so Uncle Jimmy, let's see here. Let's try this in C. Let's see if we can do it in C. I'm going to sing you the song that I recorded over there. And this project I got 10 songs now, and in the final mixing stages. So hopefully next time I see you, I'll have this record called My Aloha. Oh yeah, yeah. This is a story about Uncle Jimmy. My brothers sing on it too. Well, I was 4 years old, World War II was almost over. Uncle Jimmy came back from the Navy, from New Caledonia. He brought coconut bras and grass skirts for the ladies. And he was strumming on a CF Martin baritone ukulele. Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy in the Navy. He won the hearts of the hula girls with his ukulele. Hubba hubba ding ding, I mean, was it to ya? I wanted in a enough to retire. Uncle Jimmy said no thanks, no money in the bank. Jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy in the Navy. He won the hearts of the hula girls with his ukulele. Hubba hubba ding ding, I mean, what's it to you? I won my ukulele in a poker game in Honolulu. Of the hula girls with his ukulele. Hubba hubba ding ding, I mean, what's it to you? I won my ukulele in a poker game in Honolulu. Thank you so much, folks. And we'll see you later this evening. Arthur Hancock Jr., Chris Henry.